am Gemma. I am the Digital and Fundraising Officer at Homestart Hull. Welcome to our PADcast. So if you're not familiar with that, PADcast is basically partners and dads to accommodate for the needs of dads and other male figures. Could you guys, starting with Graeme, could you introduce yourself? Tell us a bit about who you are, if you've got any kids.
So I'm Graeme. I'm nearly 37. I've got two kids. They're twins, boy and girl, 10 years old. I've got a range of jobs, as you know. I'm a civil servant during the day. I work in the night on a Saturday night. I work with a moderately famous comic book writer, run his website and social media, handle his web sales, stuff like that. I do all sorts of stuff, really.
And Phil, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I am Phil. I am 42 and I have two kids who are 11 and 14, very, very soon to be 12 and 15 in the next week or so. I work at the University of Hull. I don't live with my kids. I'm separated from the mother of my kids, so I possibly have a different viewpoint on obviously parenting and the amount of time that I have with my kids as opposed to you, probably, Graeme. So it'll be interesting, hopefully, to get a different viewpoint on things like that. So
I'm very much in the same boat as you.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, there you go. So
so we might not be contrasting that much.
So, yeah, thank you for coming. I really do appreciate it. We're going to go through some stuff, have a casual chat and just see what comes of it. From your perspective, then this is to both of you. Is it easy?
I think it depends on the circumstances. I was not at the birth of my children, unfortunately, so I'm probably the worst person to ask that question. But it's, some people might find it really difficult. I think I'm trying to think, and the only thing that's coming to mind is when in Only Fools and Horses, when Rodney's about to have his, well, he's not, Cassandra's about to have his baby, and it's Del Boy that's, ends up crying, and he's not even the dad, he's the uncle. I'm just thinking of that. But yeah, it just depends on the circumstances. Everyone's different. Everyone deals with it differently. Some fathers will be there, some fathers won't be there. It might be a bit last minute and they're not prepared for it or able to get there. It might be a planned thing. They might be there but not allowed in the room because of COVID. There's so many different variables that can affect it. And I would hate to speak on behalf of all men and say, oh yeah, it's easy. But I think it's just too complex and difficult to summarize.
Well, the thing is you can say about women is that we have to be there. We've got no choice. Regardless of the circumstances, we have to be there. I mean, Phil, do you find it easy? Question of the day. Does anyone find parenting easy?
No, obviously it comes with all sorts of weird and wonderful things. Everyone's got different experiences. As Graeme says, he couldn't be there for the birth of his children. I was with both. And there's various different things, because with my first child, my partner was in hospital with preeclampsia before the birth, so you're obviously you're not staying over, or I wasn't staying over with her in hospital while she was being monitored and things like that. So those sort of things obviously play on your mind. You're worrying about things whether she's okay, whether the baby's okay. And then during the birth, they were trying to induce her, and then she had to go for an emergency C-section. So there's all those emotions and worries and everything that's kind of going on. So yeah, obviously it's not easy that way. And then you eventually have the child, and then all sorts of worries start happening all the time. Constantly, then you're worrying about your children and what's going to happen to them, and what coming into the world and what the world's going to be like, and how it's going to treat them, and how you're going to treat them, and all these kind of things. So yeah, there's so many different things and so many different emotions that you have with parenting. Some of them good, some of them bad. Hopefully you get lots of support from friends and family to deal with things as things come up. And I have a good relationship with my ex as well. So although we're separated, I think one of the things that we very first did when we kind of split up was to say, well, the kids come first. Even if we're not getting on, the kids aren't used as like a weapon or anything like that, or being used to punish one of the parent or anything like that.
Would you agree with that, Graeme? Because I think you were nodding there. So
Yeah, I was nodding. No, I completely agree. I think one of the biggest hurdles, a separating family can have is, how you deal with the children, how you act around the children, and when emotions are high, it can be very difficult. I imagine. I think my circumstances are a little bit different, but I think, I mean, I've seen plenty of families sort of break apart, and either parent very quickly resort to name calling or using the kid as a weapon to try and score points, and stuff like that when they're not happy with how they were as a partner, not necessarily as a parent but as a partner, and that complicates it. And then I think not everyone always works out as being the best partner in the world, but you've got to sort of knuckle down, and your kid's only going to have one parent, or not one parent, one dad, one mum, one biological parent of each side, and you've got to be as best you can for them.
For my next question, it kind of links in a little bit, but like, how do you protect your well-being? What things do you guys do to keep yourselves well?
Go on, Phil. Go on.
Thanks. I generally like to exercise a lot. It might not look it, but yeah, I do like to exercise a lot, and I do find that when I do exercise, it does really help with mental health. I've had, personally, I've had mental health issues in the past, and a lot of that has stemmed from his historical abuse that happened years ago. But I mean, luckily, I've got myself to a point where I've been able to deal with that. But in the past, I haven't, and I've not, and that's probably a big factor in why myself and my ex, split up in the first place, was to do with like my mental health and my reactions and my emotions behind it. I mean, luckily, as I say, I'm in a lot better place nowadays. Again, that's something that I probably couldn't have got through without the support of my friends and family, and medication, because I still take antidepressants now, even though it's only on a probably the smallest dosage, but you take what you can in order to help yourself kind of get through these kind of things. And exercise, you find what works for you. So for some people, obviously, as I say, with me, exercise is a big part of it. I find that when I exercise and I'm feeling fitter and healthier, it helps. You get that release of endorphins in your mind. It helps me kind of de-stress. Other people, I mean, I like to play video games as well. Other people might do video games. I think sometimes you kind of subconsciously do these things that kind of help you de-stress without actually realizing it. I think it's really important for anyone to try and find whatever works for them in order to help them, de-stress and cope with their day-to-day stresses and issues. So,
Graeme, like, what do you think about what Phil said, and then if you have anything to add to it, like, what do you do to ring fence your well-being?
I agree with almost everything Phil said, except the exercising bit. I don't exercise. The thought of it scares me. No, I do rely on my friends a lot, more than my family, I think. Like one of my closest friends, Luke, he became a parent in the last 2 years or so, and before that, he was like always having house parties. He's always saying to me, "Oh, come around on Friday night. We can have a house party." And I'm saying, "Got the kids on a Friday night, can't." And he finally gets it now. So now we meet up on a Thursday, because he's in the same boat as I am. And it's nice having a good friend that you can speak to about issues you're having with your kids or their upbringing or anything like that. But to wind down, I'm very happy to sit on the Xbox and just chill out for a bit, and I don't know, like mow people down on GTA or something. I don't know.
Quite a lot of the time we talk about like younger under fives is what we predominantly support, but you guys have got kids that are older. Are they at that age now where they're embarrassed by you?
On occasion, yeah. But then I am a very embarrassing person.
Yeah, I think so. I think they get more embarrassed the older they get. So I mean, I do the same. I sing in the car, but both of mine tend to listen to their own music on headphones in the car now, so they can't hear me. I say that, I don't know whether it is so they can't hear me, but I'm kind of taking it that way. So Yeah, I think, yeah, especially as you move into those teenage years, I think they tend to get a bit more embarrassed. I remember when I started, when I got to that age, I was certainly getting a bit more embarrassed of my parents and didn't want to be associated with them quite as much. So, and then you get older and realise, oh, actually, yeah, maybe I should.
Yeah. It's just the thing we go through. I was speaking this morning about how it's the perspective you don't have until you have your own kids, that actually, oh, I understand why my parents were like that now. I understand why that happened, or why they did this, or why they made that decision. Because now I'm making those decisions and doing the same. And I think it's a perspective you gain when you've got kids.
Definitely for me. I can see why my dad was always so frustrated with me for not keeping my bedroom tidy. Because I'm not that person. No, I get it. But I mean, I also think most people try to do things differently to their own parents, from what I've seen anyway. You know, no matter how they were brought up, they always seem to want to try something different, which is, you know, totally fine. I do it as well. With my kids, I try to be more, I don't know, active with them, and I'll do, you know, instead of telling them that, you know, we're going to do this today and you can like it or lump it, I ask them what they want to do, and then I'll do what they want to do, you know. Whereas my parents never did that with me, really. That makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I relate to that actually.
I kind of do the opposite in a way, Graeme, because I still kind of like make my kids do things, but that's because I know for a fact that if I asked them what they wanted to do, they would probably just say that they want to play on their phones or whatever all day and just be cooped up inside. And I'm conscious that they do that quite a lot anyway, you know, at home, you know, which is fine. That's, you know, it's their prerogative, but I want to try and get them out and get them, even if it's just a walk around the park or something, get them out, get some fresh air. You know, look, there's an actual real world out here, IRL. So, so, yeah, I kind of still make my kids do things from that point of view, but I do it from a viewpoint of just trying to make sure that they actually get out and get some exercise, and, you know, from a health point of view and a mental health point of view as well for them, because obviously, you know, it might be fun being inside on games all the time, but it's not great for your mental health. So, you know, I do it for them kind of primarily. Rather than actually making them do something that I want to do. Because sometimes I just want to stay in and just play on games as well. But actually, as like I say, you need to get out there and actually like see the real world and get some fresh air and, you know, stretch your legs rather than just being cooped inside all the time.
I think everyone's got different parenting styles anyway, and it's not to say one's right or wrong. It's just whatever situation you find yourself in, I suppose. Completely off topic now. How do you juggle your career with parenting? I think for what I'm getting at is that as a woman, it's you have a child and your career's on hold. You don't have one anymore. Whereas from my perspective, a guy goes back to work after 2 weeks because you only get 2 weeks off. It's very unfair. Yeah, well, what's your view on that? Counter me if you must.
From a personal point of view, I don't think it's really affected me kind of career-wise as such. Like you said, Gemma, I think it's very different for the woman, because obviously, like you say, they've kind of got it kind of gets put on hold, you know, for them, you know, that they've got to have the baby, they've got to recover from having the baby, depending on, you know, whether or not they may have had a cesarean or something like that, so they may have had to recover from surgery as well. And then obviously you kind of automatically get you know, 6 months, 9 months, however long, you know, of a maternity leave, you know, sometimes longer depending on what your job offers as well. Whereas, as you say, for the dad, you know, you have a couple of weeks off generally in paternity, and then you're back at work, and, you know, and that's kind of it. So we don't tend to have as much, obviously, as big a break as the woman does.
But with that, there's other challenges of you sacrifice time with them. So, you know, it's you only get the 2 weeks, but then you want to get those 2 solid weeks with them, and then it's not incredibly balanced, I suppose. Like, what's the thoughts on splitting paternity leave? Because I know some people say that you can take some of it from your partner and take it and use it yourself and split it. Like, what's the thoughts there?
I think I would have probably wanted to. I think if it was an option back at the time when we had my children, because I think that was introduced after I had both of mine.
It's a new thing, yeah.
But I think it probably would have. It would certainly have been an option, because, as you say, I think one, it obviously gives the dad more time with the kids and to create more of a bond with the children early on, like the mother does. And obviously to take over some of those parental responsibilities, so it isn't just the mother who just seems to be doing everything with the kids, but it also then allows, on the flip side, it would allow the woman, the mother, to go back to work earlier and possibly to actually help progress her career more. I think in general that's definitely a good thing. I don't know how in general how much people actually utilize that. I've not heard personally of a lot of people utilizing it, from friends who have had children. I think they've generally just kind of stuck to the normal 2 weeks for the dad, and then the mother's off for however long she needs to be. But I think it is a good thing, and I think it's something that probably should be utilized more, and hopefully will be utilized more in the future, so to kind of give that balance.
I'm not even sure not everyone's aware of it. It was relatively new to me, only recently introduced, I think. But Graeme, would you have used it if it was available at the time?
See, I didn't even use paternity leave, and I'll tell you why, because this is a really interesting story. I couldn't afford to. My employer at the time only paid statutory paternity pay, which was significantly less than my income. So I had to use holiday instead, which, when you think about it, is quite bad, really, isn't it? But obviously times have changed a bit since then, and now you can split maternity and paternity between you, and it is getting made to be more fair. But yeah, back then I had to use my annual leave just because I really couldn't afford to go on paternity.
Yeah,
wasn't enough money. I didn't have the money coming in. I was quite lucky because I did get the time off. I just did it a different way, so I missed out on having.
So you did get those 2 weeks.
I did take time off, but it was annual leave instead, which had a knock-on effect because it meant I had less annual leave to take throughout the year.
Yeah.
But at the time I was a shift worker working for a very different company, and it was very different to what I've got now. I was working nights and weekends and all sorts of stuff, and I do feel like I missed out on quite a lot because of that. I mean, I'm going off on a slight tangent a little bit, but now I've got a job where it's more, I'm working Monday to Friday. I'm working from home 3 days a week. I've got the flexibility of being able to pick up my kids at the drop of a hat, and whereas before I couldn't. I found out one of my best friends had committed suicide whilst I was at work, and I couldn't leave, and that was harrowing. But that was just one of those things. Like, I had to, some things were more important than just me. I had a few hundred kids to look after. So even my own kids sort of had to take a bit of a backseat if I was at work. That was just one of those things. And it's taken me a while, but now I've got a job where that's not a thing anymore. And if I need to go, I don't even have to tell anyone. I can just disappear.
Do you think there's anything else that could be improved?
Oh yeah, there's always room for improvement. I think by nature, human nature, even if we lived in a completely perfect utopia where everyone got everything and everything was fine and everyone was happy, there'd still be room for improvement, and there'd still be a committee trying to find ways to improve things and make things better. And we'd have to look after people that aren't as well off as the people at the top, and all that stuff. We're always going to be looking for improvements, and there always will be room for improvement.
What would you say to people who feel reluctant to ask for help just because they're a guy?
Well, I mean, I would always encourage them to get help if necessary. It's becoming more common, and I think it's becoming more acceptable nowadays for guys to be able to ask for help and be able to be seen expressing their emotions more. I've heard from people who have lost friends like yourself, Graeme, to suicide and things like that, and the overriding feeling and what you hear from people is always, I just wish that they talk to me, and it's becoming, I think it's men's mental health is becoming more seen as being really important, that people actually express their feelings and talk about things rather than bottling them up. It's when people bottle them up that they have the problems. It's when people start lashing out because they're trying to cope with everything themselves and they can't. You've got things that are set up nowadays, like Andy's Man Club and all these kind of things, and there's a lot more support out there for men.
The groups that Homestart Hall have, we've got to drop that one
in. Absolutely, yeah. The support, there is kind of more support out there. It's so important to try and get people talking more about it. Like you said, there's still, although it's becoming more acceptable, there's still that stigma there of, if you talk about as a man, you're not seen as a man, you can't be seen to cry and all this thing. Like survivor's bias in there as well, because there's a lot of people who go, well, I've been brought up like this and I was absolutely fine. Well, they might have been, but there's a lot of people who aren't fine because of it. Who are like living with with problems and still struggling with their mental health, or as I say, aren't with us because they've decided it was too much and decided to take their own lives. I've certainly struggled, as I say, with my mental health in the past, to the point where I was suicidal at points. Obviously, luckily, didn't go that far. But that's not to say I'd never thought about it, and it wasn't until I've actually opened up about it and got help, been for counselling, seen the doctors and got, medication. It wasn't until I started seeking that help that I was able to start dealing with things a lot better and, starting to improve my mental health and be able to progress. As soon as you talk to probably one person, and open up to someone, they'll probably turn around and say, yeah, well, I felt like that as well, and actually, because everyone always thinks it's just them. Oh, this is my problem, I've got to deal with it, no one else feels like me kind of thing. But once you actually start talking to other people about, oh, well, I've been through this and I'm really feeling down about this and it's really affecting me.
One of the things that bugs me now is I remember distinctly as a child getting upset at school and being told you're not allowed to cry, boys aren't allowed to cry. Or if you go to a teacher with a problem and they said, no, you're not allowed to do that. You've got to man up. And I remember being told that at primary school. And when you look back, that's quite horrific, really, and very wrong. Yeah. Because, that's a lot of men, even now, still have that attitude. And it was drilled into us when I was I don't know how much it's changed now. I know, obviously, like my kids are being brought up quite different to that, especially in their school interactions. But when I was at school, that was a thing. And it's quite weird to think about that because it just seems really alien, if that makes sense. Did you ever get that, Phil?
Yeah, definitely. And like you say, I think even now, even though I know it's obviously, more acceptable to talk about things, between and obviously I have in order to get help myself. There is still that thing that in the back of your mind, like you say, it's kind of like drilled into you in like your formative years, boys don't cry kind of thing. And this, even though, as I say, it's still, I know it's okay to talk, it's still there. And sometimes I still think that way. And I think I've been aware of that when I became a dad, and I've tried not to do that to my kids. So I mean, I've got one boy, one girl. So, but for the boy, I've just tried to kind of treat them both the same in terms of like, their emotional development, and try and just say, if you've got any problems, if you're upset about something, you talk to me or your mum about it, and you try and just kind of help them work through it, rather than, treating the boy and saying, right, you don't cry, you get up and dust yourself off. You can only play with the cars and the action men. The girl can only play with the dolls and whatever. So I've never tried to kind of like gender them that way.
I think it's important right now to just interject slightly, just to say that if anyone is affected by anything, that we will, I will make sure that there's details when we put this out of any support that the guys can get, any groups locally, nationally, we'll make sure that that's on there. We'll play our part with the ensuring what we discussed isn't just left there. We are going to provide the details to help, if people wish to. But thank you so much for doing this. Like, really appreciate it. Again, appreciate you taking time out. And if I have to apologise for any sound problems, it's because we are doing this entirely over Teams on this occasion. So we're all, well, I'm in the office, but you guys are at home. So thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having us.